Hello there, Star Wars fans, and welcome to another Order 66 Toys video, and I am pleased to announce that, once again, Mr. Timothy Zahn is here signing autographs with us for a weekend for Triple Force Friday weekend. Last year we had you out for our 8th anniversary celebration.
I think it was that, yes.
Back in September, and we were more than thrilled to have you back once again, and with a whole new set of questions over the span of a year.
Since I already answered all of your old questions.
Right. Well, yeah, because I can't just say, well, hey, what were you thinking here and here and here, and then, oh, it was cool reading about this, but we already talked about all that.
Right.
But this year we have a few awesome topics to talk about. One being Thrawn Treason came out in July,
Yep.
and what a fantastic addition to
Thank you.
your run of Star Wars novels and science fiction library as well, because you write more than Star Wars. And the other new hot topic that just got announced last night at New York Comic Con 2019 is the new Chiss Ascendancy trilogy
Correct.
that I'm hearing
Yes.
about. And I am very excited because I am so looking forward to learning more about the Chiss Ascendancy, because we got a pretty good window of it in Outbound Flight.
Yeah, we got the edges of the Ascendancy. We got a little bit of the politics, hinting at how some of the relationships worked. Now I'm going to get to go into a lot more depth, flesh out the whole culture, the politics, the military, all of that. So yeah, it's good, and hopefully have some really good adventure, action, military stories to go along with it.
So speaking of the Chiss Ascendancy, while we're already on the topic,
Sure.
Somebody earlier was asking me questions about how it worked, and I was trying to explain it because I'm doing my best to grasp it.
Yeah.
And the way I explained it earlier, and please correct me if I'm wrong, was I explained it as a multi-monarchy caste system.
Not quite that simple.
Oh, okay. See, and that was like, that's the simplest I can kind of think of. But
You have
I know
a
it's more
group of
complicated
families who are doing the 9 ruling families, although sometimes that number changes depending on how the culture is going. So it's like a family-oriented thing, but you bring people in from other families to your family, so your bloodline doesn't get ingrown or anything like that. You have new blood coming in all the time. So there are certain aspects of family rule, there are certain aspects of corporation where you bring people into the corporation. So it's a hybrid of that, plus some unique things that are Chiss.
Going back to more in depth with the family specifically, we know while Thrawn worked in the defense fleet, his brother Thras was in the political scope.
Right.
Are we going to be able to see more of their family, specifically some more of the political side, maybe some other family members?
We're getting
Thrawn?
into a bit more of the Myth family. The Irizu family is also going to be prominent, and there'll be bits and pieces of other families coming into play throughout the 3 books.
Awesome. What about other popular characters such as Admiral Arlani?
Arlani is going to be in this book as well, in the whole series, yes. She and Thrawn have a lot of history together going back to the Academy and such. So, Arlani will be there. We've got a few new characters. We're going to explore a little bit more of the whole Navigators concept that was introduced in Alliances and brought out a bit more in Treason. The young girls who can guide ships through the unknown regions, the difficulty with navigation through that area, using some aspect of the Force. So we're going to get into a lot of the military, political, hopefully just the cultural life of the people of the Ascendancy, and of course those around them who may or may not be friendly.
One of the things I liked about the new book Treason was you introduced the concept of the Skywalkers, which I like that. And I liked how you went back to it again in Treason while Arlani and Eli are working together on the Steadfast, and some of the crewers that Eli interacted with
Yes.
as he was trying to fit in and learn the culture.
Yeah. Eli, in this case, in Treason, is the flip side of Thrawn. Thrawn, the alien among the Imperial culture.
Right.
Eli, now the alien in the Chiss culture.
And I'm so glad you brought that parallel up, because that was a point I was going to come to. Was I liked that we got to come back to Eli, and that's another question I have is, last year when we spoke, you said you had a manuscript ready to go. Was Treason that manuscript?
Last year, yes, that would have been Treason, right.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. What about Ezra and Thrawn? I know you probably
Yeah.
don't know where we're going with that yet, but you said you also kind of had some ideas of maybe where to take that story if
Yeah.
Lucasfilm lets you.
The thing is that everything post Star Wars Rebels
Right.
is locked down at the moment because Dave Filoni gets first crack at it. And as far as you know, he hasn't decided what he would like to do. He's also up to his eyebrows in the last season of the of the Clone Wars that he was given that last season. The Mandalorian, he's got a hand in that. He is, I believe, he's still the director of animation for Lucasfilm, which means the Star Wars Resistance is still going on. There are probably other things in production we don't know about yet that he's dealing with. So he has got a whole bunch of other projects going. So I don't know when he's going to get back to Thrawn and Ezra. You know, if he ever he does in the foreseeable future. It's hard to tell. I mean, he also, at the same time that he teased a Thrawn Ezra, okay, we've got stories here, he also set up the Sabine Ahsoka search for Ezra through the collapsing Empire, which I think is right up his alley. That'd be a perfect series for him to do. So he's got a lot of irons in the fire, a lot of potential irons, and I just have to take a deep breath at this point and wait and see what he comes up with. If he comes up with a storyline, while I'm still able to write, and there may be spots in that story I can slide a novel into, so we'll have to see what goes on with that.
The next trilogy you're writing, the Ascendancy trilogy.
Yes.
Going back to that, what is the broad timeline we're looking at? Is it going to be before Outbound Flight? During, kind of?
I don't know what I'm allowed to talk about. The idea is that that the trilogy will end about the time that the book Thrawn begins. So we're trying to nestle all of that up together with what I'm calling the Imperial trilogy. See, the thing was, years ago, when they first contracted Thrawn, they were doing these books one at a time for me. So I had Thrawn. That was very popular, so they contracted Alliances, very popular, contracted Treason. But I'm doing them one at a time. And someplace around the time I was contracted for Treason, the thought occurred to me, okay, if we stop at Treason, we've got two Thrawn trilogies, the original one and this one. So obviously what I need to do is get a fourth book so I can have a Thrawn trilogy and a Thrawn tetralogy. No problem, we can distinguish those. So that was the goal. I was going to get a fourth book. Dave Filoni locked down that era, so it's not sure what we're going to get. And then they pitched to me the idea of the Ascendancy. So this is great. I now have 3 books connected, so I can start plot threads and character arcs. I know I've got 3 books to continue them. The downside is I now have 3 Thrawn trilogies. Sometimes you do your job too well. So, but it beats not being in work at all, and I get to have more Thrawn.
And that's what's exciting to me too. Is Thrawn's my personal favorite Star Wars character, as
no kidding. Yeah,
some people will know. Although I'm not Grand Admiral Thrawn.
No, not
some of our viewers have thrown around Grand Admiral Bobby or whichever. That doesn't sound very Star Warsy. We got to workshop the name.
We'll work on that. Fix it in post.
Right. Other than that, Grand Admiral Savitt.
Yes. Now remember, people have not all read it, so we're going to go with
Treason.
Right, we're going to go with no spoilers.
We're going to do our best, no spoilers. You did introduce him.
Yes.
in Treason.
Yeah.
Where did the idea come from to do another Grand Admiral?
I had established in the original trilogy that there were 12 Grand Admirals. I thought this was the right time to bring in another one, just to show the contrast between the kind of Grand Admiral that was mostly around in the Empire and Thrawn being the different one, the alien, the non-human, the one who was kind of not really melded into Coruscant politics and such. But I wanted a high-ranking officer, and Grand Admiral seemed to be the way to go with that. It's a contrast thing, yeah.
It seems, again, no spoilers, it seems through the duration of the story of Treason, Thrawn and Savitt seem to hit it off pretty well as far as colleagues go.
A lot of, as you see in the book, a lot of the resistance to Thrawn is that he is an outsider. He doesn't play the political game. He doesn't understand the political game. He's not connected in the way that most other high-ranking people in the Empire are, civilian or military. And so there's a lot of quiet, okay, he's good at military stuff, but he really doesn't know how to play this political game, and that's going to cost him. So a lot of quiet sort of contempt for him. And that was, again, something I wanted to bring out with Savitt and with Director Krennic and Assistant Director Ronan and all of these things. Yeah, this guy, he doesn't really fit into our culture. And to emphasize that sort of thing, while at the same time I'm showing how Eli doesn't necessarily fit all that well into the Chiss culture. So it's the parallel themes, as it were, of still outsiders.
Do you think, writing these two cultures now at the same time, because before Thrawn came out, you're mostly, when you finally got to expand on it, again, going back to Outbound Flight, it was mostly humans stuck in a ship full of Chiss and doing their best to get their money and get out. Right. And then they ended up not doing that. Comparatively, which culture would you say is more selfish, human or Chiss, as far as their goals? Because there was a lot of it seems to be, especially in Treason, there was a lot of greed going on. That seemed to be the fundamental problem between, and by problem I mean that was Thrawn's main obstacle. It was Krennic's greed to pull money away from the Defender Project, which was really awesome, by the way, because that was in Rebels as well. I like that you included the conversation between Tarkin and Thrawn saying, "Hey, by the way, Thrawn, your Defender Project is in trouble. Krennic, what's your money?" But I like how much more in depth Treason went with that, because all we got in Rebels was, "Hey, it's in trouble. He wants your money," and then the refinery blew up, and that was the nail in the coffin.
Right. If I needed to characterize the difference between the Imperial hierarchy and the Chiss hierarchy, it would be the primary philosophy in the Imperials is me first. In the Chiss, it would be us first. So you will not have the same scrambling for power, individual power among the Chiss, though there will be, of course, some of that, but there will be more of a family feel. You've got more in the Imperials. Now you have the various leading families, I'm sure, among the Imperials as well that will be united to stave off any other families and such. But there's much more individual ambition in, I think, the Imperials than in the Chiss culture.
Going back to that point, noticeably, at least to me, Thrawn seems, especially with his loyalties, seemed to struggle more with that concept under the rule of Emperor Palpatine. But in the original trilogy you wrote, from Heir to the Empire through Last Command, you see a a bigger push for the goals of the overall empire, since it's trying to stay alive under Thrawn's rule. But it seems more effective.
He doesn't
way.
have the political questions in the original trilogy,
right.
in Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, Last Command. He is the one in charge.
Right.
He doesn't have to deal with the same kind of politics he struggles with in the Imperial trilogy, simply because he's accepted as a leader. Doesn't have any of these games to play. He gives an order, it's carried out. So they didn't have to get into any of that in the original because there was no need. This is the Imperials where I could show how well or how poorly he deals with Imperial entanglements, as it were. And in the Ascendancy, we're going to see how well he fits into his own culture, which probably better, but maybe not nearly as well as he would like, or other people would like.
Well, and we see some of that also in Outbound Flight, because even comparative to his brother, in some cases he's seen as an outsider. His brothers wants him to act one way, and then, Thrawn's trying to do his job and do it the right way, and
he will see things differently than a lot of other Chiss, certainly than a lot of other Imperials. And he's got goals and long-term aspirations for both the Empire and for the Ascendancy that others may not recognize or may not agree with. And so that's going to be sources of internal conflict with what he's trying to do pretty much everywhere he goes.
Let's go to some of your other books. Some of your other older books, you had the Hand of Thrawn duology.
Right.
In the Hand of Thrawn duology, there was the... what's the word I'm looking for? Not...
Triumvirate? The three...
Right. The con artist, who was portraying Thrawn.
Right.
Where did the idea come from for that versus just was... Because some people thought, okay, maybe he'll be cloned, probably, but that was too easy.
It's probably something he would do. The impetus for that one was that, as I pointed out before, once Thrawn has beaten you about 4 times, you start getting paralyzed as to your own decisions. Okay, we'll do this. Wait, he probably anticipated that. We'll do this. Well, maybe he anticipated that as well, and you start getting frozen. The philosophy of the Hand of Thrawn duology was just the idea that he might be back is going to scare people spitless, right? I said that right. And they will start panicking over, he might be back. And once we start getting evidence of that, there is my favorite scene in that whole thing is when the 3 of them are scrambling like crazy to get ahead of, I think it's Han and somebody that they're trying to mess with, and at the very end they just barely get ahead of him. But Thrawn's view is, he had the whole thing anticipated out ahead of time, not having seen all of this scrambling behind the scenes. So it's once you think he's back, you're going to attribute all this stuff to his genius, and he doesn't actually have to be back to scare people into doing things against their own primary interests. So that was the idea. We don't have to actually have him here. He's already shown he can outthink you, and everybody is now panicking.
And that's one of the reasons why Hand of Thrawn duology I thought was so very awesome.
And we also had the other dual problem in that was we have found a group of people who have been associated with genocide, and the question of what is justice. Do we try to find and punish the people that were involved, or does the whole species have responsibility? And this was something you will deal with in any kind of a republic, whether it's Star Trek, Star Wars, whatever. You have 2 groups of people who are very sincere about what they consider justice, but their ideas are completely diametrically opposed to each other. How do you deal with that? We don't have any villains here. We've got 2 very sincere sides, and we can understand both sides, but we can't do both. How do you deal with that on a political justice judicial level? it's a knotty problem, and I wanted to bring that out as well. We've done this thing is not going to work as smoothly as people would like to think. It's going to be messy. However, we have enough trouble on Earth with our cultures, let alone start getting into alien cultures as well.
Right. And would you say that is a more difficult challenge than, say, the open battlefield against the Empire? Or
I mean, the world George gave us was much more black and white.
Right.
When I've got as much space as I've got in the book, let's gray things up just a little bit and make it not just because we don't understand or that we don't agree with somebody, as is often the case with Thrawn, but when I can see both sides. And that is some of the best, most interesting philosophical stuff you can put in a story. One of the things I really liked about Captain America Civil War was they did not set up a straw man. Cap thinks this way, Tony Stark thinks this way, and we, the viewers, yeah, you're both right, and you're both maybe not so right. But we can see that, yeah, they both got points. And it's not an obvious, well, this one's wrong and that one's right. Philosophy and the way we do things is going to be that tricky. You can't just say, well, one side is wrong. They may be, or it may be from their point of view, no, it's not quite that simple. And I think a lot of the political discourse these days is, well, I'm right and you're wrong. And it's not that simple. And it's easier to bring out in a science fiction Star Wars book because you don't get people's automatic reactions. You know, in Outbound Flight, I could bring up the concept of the preemptive strike without ever mentioning the word Iraq, which will get people polarized instantly. Okay, let's look at it from the Chiss point of view. These are the questions. Which side do you take? And people can look at it without the emotional triggers coming in. Part of the fun of doing science fiction is you can do that and get people thinking.
Let's go back, because I don't want to talk too much about Treason other than it was great. I loved it.
Because the neuralizer doesn't work on film.
Right, so, and I do understand some people haven't read it because a lot of people actually bought your book today here at Order 66 Toys. And we do, I believe, still have some copies.
It's only been out since July, so
since
a lot
July.
of people just haven't had it.
And while I haven't finished reading it through and through, I did have to spoil it for myself to prepare for this interview. Which I'm glad I did, but I can't wait to finish reading it. Let's go back to the Chiss Ascendancy trilogy before we wrap things up. I saw next year for the first book. What kind of time frame are we looking at for that? Is it going to be another summer release or a fall release?
Right now they're aiming for a May release for the first book.
Oh, okay.
In fact, that's why they announced it at New York. They were originally going to wait until later in the month because we were aiming for San Diego Comic-Con in July. And for whatever reason of shuffling schedules, about 2 weeks ago they said, we'd like to bring it out in May. Can you get it done by mid-October? I had originally had a December 1st deadline on it. Fortunately, I was enough ahead of it that I was able to finish it off, actually a few days before New York. So got it in plenty of time. But yeah, they're aiming for a May release for this first one. Second and third, I don't know if they're going to keep to that schedule or if they'll shift them later in the summer. Let's just get the first one out and we'll sort out what they're going to do with that. And a lot of that's going to depend on what other books they've got coming out, the schedules for those. My job is to write them on time and let them sort out how they want to bring them out publishing-wise.
Will we see possibly a childhood Thrawn in the first Ascendancy book?
I'm going to start him a little later than that. The young Anakin scared me. I'm trying to write
You're trying to stay away from
Yes, we're trying to stay away from 8-year-olds. No, he'll be older than that before, at the start of the book.
Will we see Thrawn's parents? Because we did meet his brother in Outbound Flight.
I probably should not say anything more than what I've already said.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll leave it there.
All right.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. And tomorrow we will likely do our live Q&A where you guys get to ask some questions as well with Mr. Timothy Zahn. Hopefully ones that I haven't already asked, or ones he already
ask the
said.
same ones. We don't care.
That too, or ones he can't answer, like the one I just asked.
Yeah.
I knew that was a pretty on the line question. That's
There are things
maybe.
I'm not supposed to talk about anything that has not been officially released.
No,
so I'm pushing the borders as it is.
No,
so.
I've got you. You're good.
So nobody tell about anything, like, don't talk about it on the internet.
Absolutely.
Right.
Mr. Zahn, thank you so much again for
problem.
coming out this year.
Thanks.
It was a pleasure, as always, to talk to you, and I can't wait for the next year, most likely, where we get to talk about the First Ascendancy book.
And I'll be here
so
at
very
Order
excited.
66 tomorrow, Sunday, from noon till 6. So
Noon
if you're
to
in the area,
6?
come on out.
And
We've had people come in from Atlanta, so don't let a couple of hours of driving scare you.
Absolutely. And right behind me here, we have
Yes.
our Order 66 Toys exclusive card backs available, just like always since Eric Walker, when he was here. We've been doing these character card backs, so we do have Thrawn available, Jaina Solo, and Jason Solo. And if you're wondering why we did those two, well, they're popular characters, and Mr. Timothy Zahn, if you didn't know,
I birthed them.
he created those
Yes.
two characters. And we also have this very cool
Yes.
new Timothy Zahn exclusive shirt, just like the Chimera shirt last year, inspired by our favorite character, Thrawn.
The TIE Defender.
The
Yes.
TIE Defender blueprint shirt. And that looks
Very,
fantastic.
very cool ship.
I love
And
it.
if Krennic hadn't been so greedy, we would have those things flying around and whomping those rebels.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A strong Navy would have been very, very good for the Empire.
Yes.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. We'll see you later. We'll see you another time. And thank you to the CSWC for having us on once again. We love you guys so much. You are the best. Guys, if you're not a member of the community of Star Wars collectors, you really need to join. You are missing out if you're not in there. Anyway, we'll see you later. We'll see you another time. And may the Force be with all of you.
Yep.